everyone. Welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. And in today's video, we are continuing Jujutsu Kaisen, The Spider's Curse. What if Miles Morales was Sukuna's vessel? Season 1, Part 7. As always, if you're new to the channel or if you're a regular and like what we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that's to come out now and in the future. As we continue on with the battle between both Kyoto and Tokyo, the representatives of Jujutsu High and Tech, we see how our four heroes have progressed in their skills over their month of training. Now, for this portion of the story, I'm not going to go through every single battle that happened, mainly because half of them are the same as in canon, so there's no reason to go over them. So we're mainly going to be focusing on Yuji, Miles, Nobara, and Megumi respectively. And we'll be seeing their fights individually, how they've progressed, and the skills that they've acquired as they go up against some very powerful foes. Some ones that you may be familiar with from other aspects of the world of Marvel Comics. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into today's video. So as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Both Toto and Frank would stand across from Yuji and Miles, both having picked their opponents and their targets having been acquired. Toto would be the first to get things started as he lunged towards Itadori. The two's fists would begin to clash as they exchanged in a flurry of combat and martial arts. For Yuji, he was more of a brawler than anything else. And while the training under Danny Rand had done wonders for him improving in his technique, there are some things that 1 month's worth of training isn't going to fulfill. Or 3 weeks to be more specific, when you spend 1 week inside of a cauldron that's being burnt day and night by the flames of an immortal dragon, and the only thing keeping you from melting and being burnt into black cinder is the usage of your own cursed energy, well, the other 3 weeks had to be dedicated to getting Yuji up to snuff. At best, he was able to properly fight on the defense and able to counter, but he still didn't use his full potential in terms of offensive flurry. No, that was just something that was going to have to come with years upon years of training and practice. But still, the boy was a natural genius when it came to fighting and in hand-to-hand combat. He just had the instinct for it, being able to work and move on the fly. He was something entirely raw and original, something that Danny could definitely appreciate. It was just the type of style and flow that was needed in the combat of the Iron Fist. And Yuji would take advantage of using his chi. For those of you who may not be aware, in this universe, cursed energy can be converted into something else. It was a technique developed by those in Kung Lung. You take in cursed energy, you absorb it, as you do naturally when you're a Jujutsu sorcerer. But you then purge it of all of its negative emotion. You purge the cursed energy of its hatred, as it were, leaving nothing but a glowing golden aura in its place. Or, as they called it, chi, the positive energy. Now, chi and cursed energy are polar opposites. You could say that they cancel each other out. It's the equivalent of adding a 1 to a -1 and you get 0. That's essentially how it worked. Or, here's a better example. Say Yuji, in terms of being a number with chi, is the number 3. And let's say he were fighting a Jujutsu sorcerer whose number when using cursed energy is a -3. If the two of them were to fight and clash, Yuji's 3 and the -3 of the sorcerer would cancel each other out, meaning no chi and no cursed energy. That then just leaves you with the sorcerer and with Yuji, and who's ever the strongest in base will come out the winner. That's where having the iron body comes in, and why sitting in the flames of the immortal dragon was so important. Yuji didn't just have the hands of the Iron Fist, he had the body of the Iron Fist. It meant that ordinary weapons and things that could have caused him harm, well, that wasn't gonna work. Yuji could get hit by a semi-truck and he'd be completely fine. That's just how durable his body was now. Of course, there were some drawbacks though. After all, when fighting against a cursed spirit, that's just entirely cursed energy. And if Yuji didn't have enough chi to just completely eradicate it and destroy it, then he might have to be on the back foot. But those were problems that you would just have to address when they came in due time. As for Franklin Castle, he was a different story altogether. There were stories of a man who did not have cursed energy at all. It was said that he surrendered it. He went by the last name of Fushiguro. He was a menace, and he was someone who brought some of the best in the Jujutsu world to their knees, including the likes of Satoru Gojo. His name was Toji Fushiguro. Of course, Toji Fushiguro was not the best of human beings. He made a lot of mistakes. But still, his talents could not be denied, and his name was revered. So, when looking for someone to study under, when looking for someone that you wanted to copy, that was your best bet. Frank Castle took on that role. Of course, you might be familiar with the story, but a younger Franklin suffered in a different way. He was not the best student in school. He knew this. He had even contemplated joining the military. His family life, well, he didn't really get along with them well. But he had one thing. Of course, many chastised him, being underage, having already sired a child. But for Frank, it didn't matter. He, his girlfriend, his child, it was all that mattered to him. So you could say it was more than horrifying to come home from a long day's work in the factory only to find that your girlfriend and your baby were killed in the most gruesome, the most horrifying of fashions. It wasn't often that Jujutsu sorcerers were pulled in from other countries, but you can almost say it was fate that it would happen when it did. When Frank was found, it was seen that the cursed spirit that had attacked his family was dead. The young man had killed it with his bare hands. He just mustered so much hatred, so much rage, that he was just able to produce more than enough cursed energy to rip it apart. But still, what he was left with was emptiness. Time had passed. The boy, now 19 years old, it had been 3 years since that incident. Now a third year at Kyoto Jujutsu High. He had spent his years training, growing in strength. Frank had to find the best way to obtain power. He learned of heavenly restriction, of undergoing the procedure, giving up all of his cursed energy. He didn't want to have the same power that killed those whom he loved flowing within him. However, he would make use of it. He would abuse it. He would pimp it out for all it was worth until every damned cursed spirit was exorcised. The more he learned about beings like Sukuna, the danger that they posed to the world. In the end, all of it came back to Sukuna for Frank. If beings like Sukuna had never existed, if a being like him had been exorcised a long time ago, then maybe the cursed spirits that exist today wouldn't be here. Was it rational or irrational to think that way? Yes and no, but in the end, he had his reasons for hatred. Of course, he had no hate towards Miles Morales. The boy hadn't wronged him. However, the boy did contain one of the most powerful cursed spirits in all of existence, the king of curses himself. And for Frank, if there was one thing that served as motivation, it was being the one that could exorcise Sukuna. Even if it meant killing Miles in the process. Frank used many weapons, but there was one in particular. One that was fashioned specifically for him. He found it while going on an expedition. It was known as the Cursed Blade of Muramasa. Muramasa was a cursed tool, but it was unlike any cursed tool one could ever find. For one, it was a cursed tool that could only be used by someone who underwent heavenly restriction and gave up all of their cursed energy. In exchange, you could use the blade, and the blade was very powerful. As a cursed tool, the katana could be used in multiple fashions. First, it had to be run through the heart of its enemy, whether it be a cursed spirit or a Jujutsu sorcerer. It made no difference. In order to cause a true killing blow, you run the blade through the heart, and you kill your opponent. But it wasn't just that. The blade also absorbed all of the cursed energy of whom it killed. So, for a blade that's been around for who knows how long, you can imagine how much cursed energy was stored inside of it. But of course, it's not something that anyone could just fully unleash all at once. No, it's something that you had to do with time. Try to use up all that stored power, and you might just end up getting yourself killed in the process. No, you had to unleash it in increments. But still, being able to kill cursed spirits or potentially rogue sorcerers and absorbing their power inside of the blade, only making the blade all that more stronger, almost to the point where it was impossible to break. But there was also another feature. Not only did the blade absorb the cursed spirit energy, but it also absorbed any techniques that they might have used as well. So, say for example, if Frank were to take his blade and shove it through the heart of Miles Morales, not only would he kill Miles and exorcise whatever amount of percentage Sukuna was inside of him, but while holding the blade, he would also be able to use the power of the cursed spider. Of course, this wouldn't be the true power of the cursed spider. If Fushiguro had that, it would be nothing more but a copy of the power. But still, a copy was just as good as the real thing. And in the hands of someone like Frank, you could see just how deadly he could become with it. Miles had to stay on guard at all times. Because Franklin Castle gave off no cursed energy at all, and because he had undergone heavenly restriction, Spire Sense didn't work on him. However, Miles did note that the Spire Sense worked on the blade, since the blade had cursed energy. Miles had to track the blade with his Spire Sense, and Frank made sure to keep it in whatever blind spot possible, just out of Miles' periphery, as he would go in for body strikes as well as fighting with the sword to try to keep him at a distance, slashing through his cursed webbing as he and Miles would begin their dance of violence all around the forest. However, these would not be the only battles taking place. Nobara would find herself fighting against the girl on the flying broom, Momo. Nobara had a reservoir of power. The girl flying ahead would do her best to stay out of the girl's range. But Nobara did more than perfect her straw doll technique, as she had been training with none other than Dr. Voodoo. She would call back a memory to mind. I've been told about your teammates, Nobara, and I must say you are all pretty unique in your own way. Fushiguro inherited the power of the spider. Itadori is training with the Iron Fist. But what of you? I'm training under you. Yes. And what would you say is your strong suit? My straw doll technique? I mean, it's one that I've inherited from my grandmother, and I've mastered it to the best of my ability. But in terms of raw destructive power, I know it doesn't compete with them. No, but you are a studious girl. There are many types of curse techniques in the world. Of course, each person's own curse technique is unique to them. It's not like you can just copy it with ease. For example, take Fushiguro and the power he inherited, the cursed spider. Just because you've seen it, it doesn't mean that you could ever learn it. You could never use it the way he does. But take, for example, this. It's called curse adhesion. If you learn it, you can make your palms and the toes of your feet sticky. You can climb up walls and surfaces like a spider. Or how about this? Curse binding. Using your cursed energy, you can create web-like substances, and it's like cursed webbing. You see, even if you can't use the actual technique, there are smaller ones, regular ones, that anyone could learn and master. You may not be able to have any one powerful technique, but I am going to make you something even greater. I am going to make you a jack of all trades, and not just a master of some, but a master of all. Nobara took this to heart. Along with perfecting her straw doll technique, she would learn as many type of curse techniques as she could. These were simple techniques as they were listed. The kind of techniques that with enough training and with enough determination, anyone could learn how to use them. But the problem was that they were kind of like the parlor tricks. At least that's how some refer to them as. They were the kind of things that only a novice would use if he didn't believe in his own true strength to save him. For example, Nobara gained techniques like curse fog, being able to use her curse energy to create a fog that she could use to camouflage and being able to hide herself. She also gained curse illusion, a technique that allowed her to create illusions of herself and of others, like after images or mirages. She also learned how to use the cursed chains of Krakon. The best way for me to describe these chains are, imagine how Naruto uses, or to be more specific, how Naruto's mother uses the Uzumaki sealing chains. Now imagine being able to take your cursed energy and make, chains that can bind and restrain your opponent and cursed spirits alike. But out of all of these, there was one more that she gained that was actually unique and special. That being curse sealing cards. Now you might be wondering, what are curse sealing cards? Well, imagine a deck of cards, any kind, except they're blank. They're all white. Nothing on the front, nothing on the back. Well, this technique pairs with the straw doll technique. Nobara uses the straw doll technique, and she uses it to bind a cursed spirit. Once the cursed spirit is bound and used in a paralyzing manner, not in a killing manner, Nobara can then take one of these blank cards and she attempts to seal away the cursed spirit into the card. And if she's able to successfully seal the curse into the card would then turn black and it would take on the image of whatever cursed spirit was sealed inside of it. Once the cursed spirit is sealed into the card, Nobara can then use the card to summon and unsummon a cursed spirit that will now be completely under her control. You could say this is like Pokemon, but instead of using Pokeballs and cute little creatures, you're using cursed cards and you're trying to capture cursed spirits. Now, in terms of what she can and can't catch, it all depends on how strong she is and how strong the cursed spirit she's trying to catch in the first place. So, take for example the weakest form of cursed spirit, that being a 4th grade. Nobara could catch plenty of those with ease, but the problem is that they're so small and usually so weak that outside of being distractions or for reconnaissance, they really don't do much good. But as you climb the food chain, going to a 3rd grade, a 2nd grade, a 1st grade, and then special grade, then you get into more of the heavy hitters. The problem is that Nobara has to be as strong as the cursed spirit she's fighting and attempting to seal, because she has to seal it with her own power. So, to use another example, if Nobara were fighting, say, a special grade, Nobara does not have the strength on her own to seal a special grade, thus it wouldn't work. In terms of a 1st grade, she could seal it, but it would take a lot of effort and something could go wrong, but she has a chance. A 2nd grade, it's more along the lines of a 50-50. 3rd grade would be difficult, but it would be something that she could do ultimately. So you get the idea of where she stands in terms of capturing and in terms of sealing cursed spirits using her cursed sealing cards. And for Nobara, as a gift from her teacher, she was given a special card, a 1st grade cursed spirit known as the Phoenix of Faltine, the Flaming Phoenix. It was given to her, a 1st grade curse already sealed that she could use whenever she needed. Also, if I have to specify, if the cursed spirit dies, then, the card becomes useless and you have to seal something else inside of it. Nobara would use her newfound skills to battle against Momo within the forest where the game was taking place. She would use the cursed chains to shoot from her body, grabbing around Momo's flying broom and flinging her to the ground, before shrouding them in cursed fog and using cursed illusion in order to keep her off balance as she attempted to use her broomstick and her cursed winds to blow back the fog and all of the Nobaras. This giving Nobara the opening she needed, as still she didn't want to kill her opponent. She would take a rubber mallet and imbuing it with enough cursed energy would give Momo a good ringing in the side of the head. Of course, in the meantime, other battles would still be continuing all around, from Panda battling against Mekamaru, and Maki, after taking care of Miwa, would battle against her own sister, Mai, the 2 girls disowned by their clan, the Zenin clan. But that would leave Fushiguro, as he would come into a fight with Noritoshi, who was a part of one of the 3 noble clans, along with the Zenin, that being of the Kamo clan. Of course, Noritoshi did not come from the best of circumstances or backgrounds, primarily being that his mother was ostracized for being the concubine of his father. But he was accepted into the clan despite the reputation of his mother, given the fact that he had inherited the clan's cursed technique, while his father, and the child that he bore with his actual wife were unable to do so. As such, Noritoshi had much on his shoulders in terms of creating a better life for his mother, as he would one day become the clan leader. In doing so, he believed he would be exercising and doing his duty till the bitter end, even if that meant killing and dealing with the likes of Miles Morales. Of course, he believed he found a kindred spirit in Fushiguro, who he thought would side with him and believe in the same. However, Megumi wasn't like that. Using the power he had been gifted by that of the cursed spider, he was able to use his skills and his spider sense to fend off against Noritoshi and his cursed technique, blood manipulation. Using arrows that were dipped in blood, he would be able to control their trajectory and their movement as he fired them, shooting them all around the manor where he and Megumi were doing battle. However, the spider sense was able to keep him on guard against the arrows at all times, and the two would then engage in close quarters combat, where Noritoshi would use more of his blood manipulating arts, using it to amplify his own strength within his own body, even being able to match the might of the spider. However, Fushiguro also had tricks of his own, using that of the Shinigami of the elephant, that was capable of producing massive torrents of water from his trunk, along with the flying owl that could produce electricity. And his Shinigami were also buffed because of the powers of the cursed spider that amplified Megumi's own strength, speed, reflexes, and all of his stats. Those same attributes were attributed to the Shinigami that he was able to summon, making them much more stronger. The battle intensified between the two heads as they were looking to amplify their techniques and raise the stakes. However, in that moment, the fight would be halted as Toge would run to them. The user of Cursed Speak, who normally spoke using various fish ingredients, could only say one thing: run. The two would immediately do so as large roots that seemed to be pulling from the earth itself would begin charging towards them. Mahito watched from a distance as he and his companion, Juzo, a obsessed fanatic who had only one thing on his mind, that being of turning Satoru Gojo into a coat rack. Why a coat rack of all things? Well, no one could truly know. But hey, it's nice to have dreams, and everyone's got to have something to do as a hobby. And for him, it was turning people's, bones and other bodily parts into various forms of furniture and what he called art. And for Gojo, he had the perfect vision of turning his bones, his spine, vertebrae, all of it into a coat rack. Heck, if he had some free time, maybe he could take his skull and turn it into a bowl where he could stuff in some cashews as a party favor to the guest, if he ever had any. All the same, though, the teachers who were watching back from the base would be concerned. All of the cursed spirits inside of the forest that they had sent out for the exercise had all been defeated. And what was worse, it seemed as though the students were under attack and they could no longer get reception. Gojo, along with the Kyoto principal, Gakuganji, as well as Utahime, would go after the students immediately, while Mei would stay at the base to keep watch over everything, and the principal of the Tokyo school would go and check on Tengen. Gojo would lead the charge with Gakuganji and Utahime, as they eventually arrived to where the forest was, only for a veil to be placed over it. A veil that kept only Gojo from entering, but anyone else could come and go as they pleased. Gojo couldn't help but be impressed. This was their plan, trying to keep him out. Whatever this was, it wasn't coincidence. This had been planned out. But whoever their enemies were, wherever they had come from, what were they truly after? What were they trying to gain? It seemed as though what started out as good competition between two schools had now devolved into something else entirely. As Toji, Megumi, and Noritoshi found themselves face to face with the special grade, the being known as Hanami. With its left arm wrapped in bandage, its right arm free, and branches coming out from where its eye socket should be, the cursed spirit only looked to the sky, proclaiming that what it did was for the sake of the earth and for the benefit of mankind. If mankind truly wanted to repent, if it truly wanted to show its regrets for what it had done to Mother Earth, then humanity only had to do one thing: die and become sages with the earth. This concludes Jujutsu Kaisen The Spire's Curse. What if Miles Morales was Sukuna's vessel? Season 1, Part 7. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we continue Konosuba and the Adventures of Spider-Ham. What if Kazuma was Spider-Ham? Season 2, Part 3. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with Power Core Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.